Welcome to Paint Radio with your hosts, Andrew Dwyer and Kevin Hoffman.
Heck yeah, let's do a podcast, Paint Radio, the APC podcast. I'm Andrew Dwyer. Kevin Hoffman is here. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Doing well.
It's a Monday, and what better way to start the week than to do a podcast talking about commercial painting? And as I always say, because it's always true, we have the right people for the job to do just that. We have Maggie Kuyper, CEO and owner of Harpeth Painting in Nashville, Tennessee. Maggie, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. And we have Chris Elliot, president and owner of On It Painting from Indianapolis, Indiana. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
You know, Kevin, both of their NFL teams lost this weekend, but they are professionals. Are you? No, Maggie?
Mine didn't lose.
Mine didn't lose either.
Go Packers.
Oh, you don't support the home team. This shows how well I don't know my guests.
Bandwagon fan over here. Go Chiefs.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
I just did that to provoke some people.
That is too funny. Well, I'm glad you shook your head, Maggie. It won't be the first time on this podcast that somebody shakes their head no towards something I say. But we're here to talk about commercial painting. Let's start with you, Maggie. What percentage of your business, of your revenue, is commercial versus residential?
We typically, when the year is done, waver somewhere between 50-50 or 60-40 weighted commercial.
Okay. And Chris, how about you?
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing?
Yeah.
And have you guys been has that grown recently?
So for us, we started as a residential repaint company, and so we didn't start putting intentional effort into growing our commercial division until about 2020. And so, over the last 4 years, we've grown it to be 50% of our revenue mix.
So why did you choose commercial to expand? It's, I'm sure, quite a bit different than residential.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits. So my background prior to starting my company was in the commercial space. So commercial repaint specifically. So it was what I was comfortable with. Residential is a great way to get the business off the ground, build a reputation, some brand awareness, start building vendor relationships, banking relationships. So as we got more established, we were about 4 years in, we started the effort of launching commercial. Obviously, larger job size, you can handle more work with less people. So,
Maggie, how about you?
You know, we've always done all of it. It's been a great mix for us. It's our guys like to do both, which is super strange. But I think they enjoy the variety. You know, the commercial jobs can be big and long, which is nice, but also big and long means hard. And they get, there's a lot of fatigue and just, you're there for a long time. And so every once in a while, they love to just make somebody's home beautiful and kind of see the other side of, what we do. And so we've always done pretty much that split. I think over, we do a lot of new construction in both. So the weight's going to ebb and flow on new construction cycles. And so, there's been winters we were 90% commercial and winters we were 20% commercial. So it's a great model for us to kind of keep the calendar full as the market demands.
So, they're distinct areas. There's difference, obviously, when it comes to the customers, finances, all that different stuff. Talk a bit, Maggie, let's start with you about maybe what the specific management needs are for managing the commercial side of the business, whether that's team building, whether that's the process, the marketing. What talk a bit about the different management requirements.
Yeah, the commercial world is definitely different. If you're listening and you're primarily residential and maybe dabbled in some commercial repaints, you've probably seen that it's a lot more transactional. It's a lot more based on trust, and there's kind of a different, it's also a lot more professionalized. And so the expectations of paperwork, the expectations of deadlines, what you need to provide to be able to complete the job are different. And so anyone in our team who either sells or manages commercial work has to be familiar with those cycles, because they're very different. The sales process is different. The bidding process is different. The paperwork is different. And so it's great, because I think it lends us to more professionalization on the residential side, because that's what we're used to. We're used to strong contracts. We're used to documented change orders. We're used to all these things that are standard in the commercial world. And so we joke, our best commercial project managers are both cowboys as well as really good at details. And that's a strange breed. But Chris is nodding, so he feels it. Like, you got to be able to just like shoot from the hip and roll with certain things and be tough, but also you got to be able to turn your paperwork in on time and make sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
I love that Maggie has her 6-shooters already out this early in the podcast. Yeah, I mean, you use the word different a lot, and I agree completely. It's like, that's what we run ours, completely separate divisions, different people, different processes. Again, different division. It is a different skill set. So for us, we have found like our residential sales reps don't cross over to commercial. Our residential PMs don't cross over to commercial. We have commercial PM, residential PMs. It's with commercial project manager, and I want to be clear, or at least clarify that like we only do repaint, and we specifically target like property management companies, and a lot of regional relationships. So what we're looking for, like with residential, we're not asking anyone to travel. They're traveling throughout the city, but they're not traveling. So we obviously need someone who has the capacity for travel. We need someone who has the capacity to manage a $1,000 commercial job to a $1 million commercial job. And so typically we found it's just a different. Residential is very transactional. It's very fast moving. We need somebody who can keep a lot of balls in the air, where commercial, maybe less balls, but the balls are glass opposed to plastic. So you don't want those falling and dropping, because one commercial relationship could be $1 million of annual revenue. So we found that it's two very different people. With commercial, there's a lot more that happens before the job than residential. A lot of project planning, scheduling, coordination, but then once that project launches, it kind of just seems like it runs on rails, opposed to like residential. We like to have a lot of oversight, daily check-ins, things like that, where commercial, you can maybe get a little bit more distance between your checks. I feel like our commercial painters and our residential painters don't cross over as well. There's definitely some that could, but also it's a bit of a different skill set. We contract most of our commercial work. So our commercial contractors are, I would say, a little have a higher competency level for commercial work. So,
Chris, you just kind of touched on it. How is the financial reporting different for residential versus commercial? The back office stuff you hear all the time in this industry. You got to know your numbers, and so how does that apply when it comes to commercial versus residential?
Yeah, Maggie touched on this, but we kind of did it in reverse. Like, we professionalized as we built residential. We really differentiated ourselves by being very professional with clear, detailed proposals. Customers knew exactly what they were getting. A clear, defined receivables process, and job costing, all that. So like it honestly carried over nicely with commercial, even though it is very different, right? So for us, like it's a lot of the same. It's just different, right? Like as Maggie said, where a residential project might go between 3 and 5 days, a commercial project might go between 3 and 5 months. So there's a lot of the project planning, but there's also a lot of financial planning and understand where money's going to be held up, and if you're going to need to utilize a line of credit to help fund. If say you have 3 projects going that are all north of 500K, and you also have a residential division going, and you're going to have to understand like where your money's going to be, and so it's a lot more planning. And then on the back, what I love about residential is it's emotionally charged, right? It's a lot of fun to go, as Maggie touched, go sell a residential project to someone who's motivated to make their house beautiful. That's a lot of fun. It's also, because there's so much emotion in there, it can make it very challenging. With commercial, it's far more professionalized, as Maggie said. It's typically someone's job. So they're like, hey, like, bro, just don't make me look bad. Like, make this thing go, like, make me look good in front of my bosses. So it's less emotionally charged. So when things happen, you can, typically it's a little easier to work through. So I know I went away from the financial question there, but I thought it was important to make that, like, that emotion, the distinction between the two, around like how emotionally charged one is.
No.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Hyde Tools and their new Heat Safe Contour Scraper. Following in the footsteps of the best-selling contour scraper, Hyde Tools introduces the Heat Safe Contour Scraper. Use it to scrape molding, chair rails, stair spindles, door and window casings, or any detailed scraping project. Designed to work alongside heat guns, the Heat Safe Scraper features a 10-inch metal shaft that will not melt or warp in extreme heat. Use the quick release lever to change the double-sided blades quickly and easy. It comes with 6 double-sided blades for a total of 12 different scraping contours. And special offer for Paint Radio listeners. Spend more than $50 at HydeTools.com and save 15% at checkout with the code Paint Radio. All one word. Paint Radio. Again, HydeTools.com.
No, that's excellent. I think that gives us a lot more context. Maggie, maybe you can also talk a little bit about running the books.
Yeah, I love money. I love talking about numbers. But so as I mentioned, we do a lot of repaint like Chris. We also do new construction. So particularly on the new construction in the commercial world, your billing cycles are very disciplined, I think is the word I use. So we have monthly AIA billing, which is required documentation from the GC. On that, you have to provide schedule of values. The schedule of values is cross-checked with the superintendent or project manager, whatever the company structure is. And so, in that whole process, you're basically having to kind of say, this is how far we've gone. This is percent completion. There's oftentimes lien waivers and vendor waivers. There's just all kinds of paperwork that gets brought into it. And so for us, job costing is a huge source of that. And so if you're not, like Chris said, in your numbers, whether it's backwards or forwards, right? Job costing is retroactive. And so we look at job costing, we compare that to where the guys are on the job. And that also helps us then forecast how we're going to do on this job. We're 70% complete, but we only have 10% of our budget left. Shoot, but oftentimes that doesn't happen because you're going through that process every single month. And so there's a lot more discipline involved. You have to know your numbers. You have to know where you are. You have to know what things are worth. And so when there is a change order, you have to be able to provide a clear value to it. You don't just get to slap numbers on things. It's very much regulated between the checks and balances of the contractor.
You mentioned, I think your answer illustrates what you said before about, on one hand, you need to be a detailed professional, and the other, you need to be a gunslinging cowboy. And that, you better have your processes in place. You go in with a plan and you execute the plan, but at the same time, you're ready to improvise when things go sideways. I'm guessing that's pretty darn important. So let's on the similar question to what
I want to touch on the I drifted. I think it's important. at PCA events, we hear a lot of residential contractors that are wanting to make the transition to commercial. If specifically thinking through the financial side, the important piece is you're going to go from like a very transactional business model to jobs that are, where, as Maggie touched on, you're going to have to understand your work in progress, have a WIP report, and be able to document that. So you're going to need to move from a cash basis to an accrual basis. So being prepared for that is really, really important if you're a residential contractor that is looking to make that adjustment.
Great point. Chris just referenced PCA. For those listeners who are not familiar with PCA, that's the Painting Contractors Association. There's an association, at least one, sometimes two, for every industry, and that's certainly true in the painting industry. That's the Painting Contractors Association. Their website is pcapainted.org. In fact, we're going to talk about them a bit more later on. Both Chris and Maggie are involved.
I think we're the only one that's a 140-year-old nonprofit organization in our industry. Woo!
That is for sure. Yeah, nobody can hold a candle to that. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. So on the marketing front, I'm assuming that the average commercial, the typical revenue from an average commercial client as a percentage of total revenue, that number is going to be, sometimes it could be pretty darn high. And Maggie, you alluded to that you got to keep those customers happy and you can't lose that customer. So how do you foster those relationships, either you personally or people on your team?
We've been really intentional about meeting that client where they are and understanding, again, it's easy to prototype, your standard residential repaint customer. I love that people are like, who's your ideal customer? And not necessarily in the paint world, but, someone can say a 40 to 47-year-old female living in, 2,000 to 8,000 square foot house. And I'm just like, no, my ideal customer is someone I like, that I trust, that pays. I don't know. So we've worked really hard on the commercial side, especially to when we find a GC who, or a property manager, whether it's repaint or new construction, when somebody trusts us, we trust them. They care about quality because we care about quality, and they're not, super budget driven. We don't want someone who wants the lowest price for everything. When we find those customers, our marketing approach is, what do they want? And we have property managers on the repaint side and commercial that want us to show up. Like Chris said, they want us to do a good job. They want us to make them look good, and they want us to get out. They don't want to be schmoozed. They don't want to be bamboozled. They just want us to make them look good. We have other property managers who never get spoiled. And when we take them out golfing or when we bring them lunch, it's like the greatest thing that could have ever happened. But it's person by person. To your point, we have fewer commercial clients because they are larger revenue source. So we can make those individual accommodations. Same thing on the GC side. Think about how many subs a general contractor in the commercial world uses. If every single sub is asking them to lunch, bringing them Chick-fil-A, bringing them donuts, taking them on a golf outing, they would never work. They're exhausted. Everyone's trying to get in front of them. Everyone's trying to do something for them and take them something. And so we really lean into the nuances. For example, we have a client we're taking out this Saturday to a nonprofit event. We took him and his wife last year. It's a big outdoor concert party. They had so much fun last year. So we invited not only him and his wife, but we gave them 2 more tickets to bring 2 of their friends along because he had so much fun. And that is just a surefire way, to deepening that relationship. But that same event would be a nightmare to someone else. And we're not going to invite, so we're really always kind of playing this, the individual gift giving game.
Chris, how about you?
Yeah, very, very much the same. So we, opposed to residential where it's very marketing driven, commercial, especially repaint, is very relationship. We don't do any new construction, so we don't work with general contractors. But my understanding is exactly what Maggie said. Like, you want to find one that you know and trust, and that they pay. And for us, we're qualifying customers as much as they're qualifying us. To Maggie's point, we want it to be a relationship. And so, people talk about taking someone out. It's very easy to take someone out and treat them if they just gave you a $400,000 project. It's a lot more challenging, but maybe better timing to take someone out after they didn't give you the $400 project. It's playing the relation, like you're leaning into the relationship. So a relationship is not based on one being awarded one project. You have to understand exactly. So understand who your customer is, what motivates them, what are their pain points beyond. Obviously, they all have a pain point or a problem they're trying to solve. It's painting, but it's typically more than that. Maggie touched on this. Is like, for one customer, it might be impact to the property, impact to the team, the residents, the tenants. There's a lot that there's a lot of different types of properties, different types of property managers, buildings owners, facility managers, whatever. So understanding that helps you understand how you can solve a problem for them, and then reinforce that relationship. So I think business development is, again, it's a different skill set than maybe marketing for residential customers. So it's an important piece of the puzzle, and it takes time, right? So it is a long. So I say that weekly in our or in our company, like, we're playing the long game, right? So our decisions, it makes decision making easier when you understand the game that you're playing. And so we're playing the long game. It has to be, if you're a residential painting contractor and you're looking to expand into commercial, you have to understand that it's an investment, and that it's going to take time, money, and effort. And it is everything takes. So it could take you 6 months to develop a relationship that starts producing bidding opportunities. Then you have to start bidding them. And then you have to understand, for that person, it's important for them to have multiple contractors that they're working with, because typically they may just be expected to get 3. So you're not going to win everything, even with a great relationship. And then you win the project, you got to be able to produce the project. Then you got to get paid from the project. So it's reasonable to think that you could start effort today, and it's 12 months before that effort is realized from a financial standpoint, as far as like hitting the P&L. So I think it requires real commitment. It makes you, if you were, I'm coming from the standpoint of someone looking to expand. If you're going to expand, you need to revisit the vision for your company. You need and if commercial plays into that vision, you need to make a true commitment, have conviction, because it's not going to happen fast. More than it could, right? I mean, everyone gets a little lucky, but it's not going to consistently happen fast, right? We are winning jobs this year that we bid 2 to 3 years ago, and that's very, especially the bigger ones. It can be a very long sell cycle, because again, it could be $200,000 to $500,000 that they're looking to, improve a property, and sometimes it just doesn't work with the timing or the budget. So. You just got to, high level of patience. So,
and Maggie, how's that play out on your leadership team? We talked a little bit about, sometimes residential workers may not be the right ones for the commercial job. Do you have dedicated people, who are more focused on commercial? Did you specifically hire people in that regard when you decide to move on to commercial and expand?
Yeah, we've got kind of a sprinkling of everything. I have 2 dedicated commercial estimators. And, as I mentioned, on the new commercial side, it's a different process. They're bidding plans, which is a unique skill set that not everyone has. And so their ability to run takeoffs, to go through the 3 different phases of bidding, to handle negotiations that are typically done via email and phone call, there's just kind of a very different person in that. So we have 2 commercial estimators. We have 1.5 estimators who focus on commercial repaint. And so within that repaint side, though, they kind of blend into residential, because some of those residential jobs run very similar size and capacity to the commercial repaint. So the new commercial world is definitely its own kind of vertical with the bidding and the managing process. There's so many levels of not only paperwork, but safety protocol, all the red tape that you have to go through that you have to know. And I didn't want to have to teach it. So we kind of create that as its own little vertical.
And Chris, what about you? What's your leadership team look like as regards to commercial?
Yeah, good question. So as a company, we have leadership for every function of the business. So, and then the divisions have leadership as well. So we have someone driving our residential division. We have someone driving our commercial division. They report to me. We have someone that's my wife actually oversees our finance and administrative team, which is again with commercial, a very important aspect of it. So, and then within that department, very similar. The two divisions have project management, people in sales capacity, as well as administrative support.
Nice. I think it's safe to say that in the commercial side, contracts are more common. Contracts are probably more complex. Things can go sideways legally. So how do you both handle that? Do you each have an attorney on retainer? Whose who's responsible for reviewing contracts? Maggie, let's start with you.
I tell everyone I can get in front of me, you need a good lawyer, you need a good accountant, you need a good insurance person, you need a good banker. If you're going to be successful in commercial, you can run a really good residential company with some of those legs being a little wobbly. But on the commercial side, you have to be able to fully trust those 4 people, and they need to be proactively looking in your best interest. And so our lawyer is awesome. I can email him questions. I can email him contracts. Typically what we do is our initial kickoff relationship with a client, whether it's repaint or new construction, we let them review the contract. So he can just give us a heads up of like anything that might be out of the ordinary. We oftentimes have our insurance agent review it again, which is free. That's fun. Because there are insurance specifications for some of our contracts. And so we use those resources, and it costs money for the lawyer, but I would rather pay $300 to $600 and have that security that I'm not going to get surprised by something, or have that security to back away, And so, yeah, our lawyer is, I probably funnel him $1,200 to $1,500 a month regularly just on reviewing contracts, reviewing, issues, checking in on things. And so the second part of that is that I'm always on his brain. So how law works, right, is you go to courts, and the different rulings are what often lend themselves to an issue. So if we did have an issue, it's often not black and white with the law. The judge is often going to lean into previous rulings. And so there have been a few cases where my lawyer reached out, because I'm always top of mind. I'm always checking in with him. He's reached out to say, hey, just heard about this case. Here's how it landed. FYI, this could affect you in the future, or not, or keep your mind, keep your heads up that people are doing this because we don't want this to happen to you, or something like that. So it's proactively using that relationship, not just when I need him.
Legal 101 from Professor Kuyper. Thank you, Maggie. Chris, how about you? How do you handle that element?
Yeah, so new relationships. So we're very careful with new relationships as far as size of job, how far from home, and contract. Right. So that would definitely be a time if we have a new relationship where we're going to bring in an attorney to review. As far as, so we may have, if we have an existing customer who we know and trust, and we've never had an issue, and it's under 100,000, then it could be our commercial sales rep who's reviewing the contract. If it's a newer customer, we've done a few jobs and it's a, $500,000 job, may be myself or Emily, who oversees our, finance and admin team, who reviews the contract. And then again, there's scenarios that we're bringing in our attorney. We're very relationship focused, as you need to be. So we are already prepared with a packet of what a typical customer would need from us as we enter a relationship or a new project. Also, we are prepared with what we need from them, right? So who's our site contact, who's our primary contact, who needs to be involved in weekly updates, who's the receivables contact, what do you need to pay us? And so we're handling that from the very beginning. Then we're tying in our financial function of the business into the project planning, so we understand what's going to happen with the money. And so that bigger jobs, especially if they're happening, we're in Indiana and we serve a regional, or we have a regional focus, but a lot of what we do is in an area where there's a lot of action 8 months of the year. So we have a lot of big stuff happening all at once. So we're involving Emily, who's our director of finance, and our CFO, and doing a lot of the financial planning of it. But from the contract preparation, like I said, it could be different people based on the situation, but typically it's going to be the person who's selling the job. It's going to be someone from the financial side of our business, whether that's our director or that could be someone in staff accounting, and then there's situations where we do involve an attorney.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Hyde Tools and their new Heat Safe Contour Scraper. Following in the footsteps of the best-selling contour scraper, Hyde Tools introduces the Heat Safe Contour Scraper. Use it to scrape molding, chair rails, stair spindles, door and window casings, or any detailed scraping project. Designed to work alongside heat guns, the Heat Safe Scraper features a 10-inch metal shaft that will not melt or warp in extreme heat. Use the quick-release lever to change the double-sided blades quickly and easy. It comes with 6 double-sided blades for a total of 12 different scraping contours. And special offer for Paint Radio listeners. Spend more than $50 at HydeTools.com and save 15% at checkout with the code Paint Radio. All one word, Paint Radio. Again, HydeTools.com.
We've talked a lot about the commercial side of the business, and so I think a lot of people listening are either waist deep in commercial, or they want to be. They're looking to get there, and you guys have given us a great amount of information and insight. But obviously, no podcast can cover the whole terrain of commercial. Luckily, PCA has a commercial forum coming up in Arizona. So, Maggie, can you tell me a little bit about that and what to expect?
Dude, I'm so excited. It's in Scottsdale, or outside, just outside at the Broadmoor, which is the
Boulders.
Sorry, the Boulders. Sorry. I'm getting all my B hotels mixed up.
We have too many great events for the PCA.
I know, and I'm so excited. So yeah, I would consider this more of an intimate. So if you've ever been to Expo, which is PCA's large annual event, this is a much more intimate event. I think last year at the commercial conference, we had between 100 and 150 attendees in Nashville. Convenient, that worked out. And it's a great opportunity to network. I think that's like the root of the commercial conference, is an opportunity for those of us doing it to share best practices. I have like 3 or 4 huge nuggets that I've taken from, a one-on-one conversation with Gina out of Denver, or, Scaturo out of New Jersey, like these tiny little nuggets that are massive in how they impact my company if I take it home. And so those conversations with colleagues, so if you're already in commercial, that's huge. For us, I know we're going to come learn these things. If you're getting into commercial, it's just like the best opportunity to not only learn from those people doing it, but also all the educational content is really going to help you dive into the depths of it. Calvin Pate is kind of orchestrating the content, and he runs a multi-million-dollar worldwide commercial contracting company. And so for him to provide content, that it is at the core of what every commercial company should have to be successful.
What about you, Chris? What are you looking forward to? And is there any particular speakers or panels that we should look forward to?
Well, first, it's going to be hard to follow that up. Maggie just absolutely did an awesome job. I'm looking for the PCA offers a lot of great resources and education, but the thing that has really like changed my business and frankly changed my life are the relationships. The networking and the relationship building that you get at these events is like it's really it's amazing. I met Maggie at the 2020 Expo, and as well as Matt, her husband. I met Chris Mull at that Expo. I think it was the second time meeting Nick in like the Slavic, and these have become some of the greatest, my best friends. Right? We talk very, very frequently. Also, a lot, someone I can call at any time if I had a question for my business. It's you go to these events and like you start to feel very, very lonely in your business. Also, you can be in your business thinking that you're very, very awesome or very, very awful, and then all of a sudden you go and you rub shoulders with your peers. Like either brings you back down to earth, or you have someone there that kind of pull you up and motivate you. I just think that the relationship piece is so important. Then the education, as Maggie touched on, is going to be really tremendous. I have been personally involved with helping bring in some sponsorship, and the vendors that are going to be attending and that were gracious enough to sponsor the event are going to be offering products and services that you're going to want to know about, and they're also just tremendous people as well. The opportunity to build relationships with your peers and with great companies that are serving the commercial painting contractors, it's going to be the place to be. It's going to be really tremendous. I think the timing is great. It's a beautiful, unique resort. And if it's a great one to bring your spouse to. As Maggie said, it's going to be very intimate. And there's going to be lots of opportunity for events and opportunities to play golf or go to the spa or go do something fun. I just think it's going to be a really, really special time.
I think for contractors who have not attended certainly any specific event, say you haven't attended Expo, which is the annual convention, or a residential conference or the commercial conference, there may be some hesitancy. They think, wow, that's just a bunch of friends who already know each other, or good old boys network, or good old girls network. And I think that is, from a marketing standpoint, that is the challenge, is to convince these painting contractors who have not attended an event before to do so, because it just opens your world up. It opens your mind up to all of these possibilities, because you're right, Chris, you can think you suck, or you can think you're a star. In both cases, you're probably both right and wrong, and it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter where you are. It matters where you're going and what you could do. And as I always say, it's about the unknown unknowns. You don't know how good things could become. You don't know how much better things could become until you start rubbing shoulders with your peers, because there are no new ideas. I know I'm just throwing out cliche after cliche, but it is true that all of these problems have been faced before. Why not hang out in a room with a bunch of people who have solved them and moved on to the next problem? So certainly if you're a contractor who's looking to get into commercial, or if you're a contractor looking to expand their role in commercial, God, there's just no better opportunity than to rub shoulders with these people. And yes, I've been to these events. I see a ton of people who know a ton of people, and they're super excited to see their friends. But that has no bearing on those people's ability, Maggie and Chris included, and desire to meet new people, because these two just met a bit ago. So I'll stop spewing enthusiasm. Is there anything you guys want to add or correct to my spew?
I like your soapbox. It was cute. Can I say, maybe not, so Kevin, you can edit this out, but the mindset that you don't know anyone and all that stuff is just, it's such bullshit. Like I went to my first expo as a female in the industry, which there were definitely not a lot of those. at Expo previously, which thankfully we've worked really hard to elevate the women in the industry. But, we didn't know anyone, and we awkwardly inserted ourselves in conversation, just like Chris did. And fun fact, Chris Moll is actually asked Chris Elliot to be godfather for his child. Like, that came from people just talking to people at Expo. Like, this was no, so, Matt and I both, and I'm sure Chris does, I know Nick Slavic does, and a lot of the people that are involved in leadership at PCA, we probably have 1 or 2 calls a week offering our ideas, our perspectives, our systems for free to support people in the industry who have questions. I think even our director of operations here had 2 calls last week with people that he met through PCA to just help them and to show them what we're doing and to ask questions about what they're doing. And so to think that, the community at PCA is not one that's just like, let's share, like, let's go, come on in. The circle's never closed, like, ever at all. And so I love that about PCA. And if you think it's otherwise, you probably are wrong. Sorry.
I love it.
All right.
So if you are listening and you don't know any of the names that Chris and Maggie just referenced, or you simply know of them, but you've never met them, don't view that as an obstacle. Don't view that as a problem. It's an opportunity, because that's another phrase I love. It's not a burden, it's an opportunity. Here's your chance to get to know either them or other people. You have to spread your network, because again, when it comes to painting, contracting, or any type of entrepreneurial effort, you've got to meet kindred spirits. You've got to people who share the same struggles and successes, and you've got to get away from your business. You got to have heads up every once in a while, and this is a great opportunity to do that. So the PCA Commercial Conference is November 12th through the 15th at the Boulders Resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. Maggie also mentioned the Broadmoor, which is an equally lovely resort, and that's where the expo is going to be in February in Colorado Springs, my hometown. Maggie and Chris, thank you so much for giving us some of your time, sharing your enthusiasm. There's nothing I love more than enthusiasm, and when there's wisdom mixed in there, holy cow, you can't ask for more than that. Chris Elliot, Maggie Kuyper, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being on the podcast. Chris Elliot, of course, president and owner of On It Painting in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Maggie Kuyper, CEO and owner of Harpeth Painting in Nashville, Tennessee. But they don't follow the football teams in those cities, so don't try to talk to them about it. They will shut you down quickly. Thanks for both of you being on the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Kevin. Good to see you, Maggie.
If you want to learn more about PCA events, go to pcapainted.org. If you want to learn more, because I love talking about kindred spirits. That's what Paint Mag is all about. Go to paintmag.com. You'll find people who share your struggles and have had success. That's why we're here. Thanks for listening to Paint Radio, everybody. Have a great day.